Heyo adventurers, my name is Derek and this is Elven Tower Adventures. This is chapter number 2 of my TTRPG game design vlog, where I will be documenting the process of the creation of my fantasy heartbreaker, the perfect RPG for my game and my style, and perhaps I and you will learn some stuff in the process. In this video, I will be talking about dice resolution systems. In most TTRPG systems, there comes a point when the party or the characters want to do something, and we have all decided that the funnest way to do this is to roll dice and leave the result to a random factor. If you are playing a game such as Dungeons & Dragons, this is the 2024 re-edition, you know that for most stuff you roll a 1d20, add a modifier, and then compare it with a target number like an armor class or a difficulty class. That's like the base of D&D and some other games that are like clones of D&D. But there are many ways to do this, and in many different games they do this in very different ways. Alright, so let's explore the elements of a dice resolution system. Dice resolution elements. Every resolution system has 3 factors. The first one is the dice, the actual dice that you roll. Next is the modifiers. And then you have the target number. If you want to see this in D&D terms, then you would have your D20 plus your proficiency bonus, and you would compare it to a difficulty class. So for example, if you're rolling to find a secret door, you would roll perception or investigation. So you would have a d20 plus your proficiency bonus plus your wisdom bonus, and then you would compare it with the difficulty class. Let's say it's 15. So you roll a d20, add the modifiers, and see if you got 15 or more. If you didn't get it, then you failed. If you get 15 or more, you pass. For D&D, it's just like that because it's a binary system. That means you either pass or you fail. Other game systems have levels of success, and we will talk about this in a few moments. Different systems have different dice resolution mechanics, and the one they use gives the system a style. You would perhaps call it a soul. Each of these 3 elements can be modified in the system. They're always moving. Some of them are more static than others in some games. How these elements move around in the system and how much they are static or swingy, how much they changes the feel of the game. For example, in D&D, it's just that d20. You could have advantage or disadvantage and add a second d20. And that's pretty much all that moves in the dice part of the dice resolution. Then the modifier. You have your proficiency bonus, which is static. It scales up with level, but it is static. And then you have your ability score bonus, which is also semi-static, but depending on what you're rolling and whether you have proficiency or not, then you add it or not. And then you have the DC. This is where most variance comes in D&D. The target number changes all the time. If you're attacking a monster, its armor class is going to be different for all kinds of monsters. If you're trying to do a skill check, well, the difficulty is going to change a lot. So in a game like D&D, you have just a little variability in the dice part, a little more variability in the modifiers, and then you have a lot of swinginess in the target number. We'll see in a moment that in different games, this is all completely different. All these 3 factors can move a lot. Okay, so for games like Dungeons & Dragons, D&D 5e, or the OSR clones of basic and experts like Into the Odd, or some other games like Dungeon Crawl Classics, or even Pathfinder, and all the D&D clones, it's just what I explained before. You have your d20 plus a modifier, a proficiency bonus and stuff. This changes depending on the game, but you add some numbers to the roll and then you compare it to the difficulty class. It works pretty much just like that for most systems. Pathfinder 2e has some levels of success depending on how close you are to the target number or how much you surpassed it. If you surpassed it by 10 or more, you get like extra success. If you don't reach it by 10 or more, then it's a critical failure. Dungeon Crawl Classics also has some wonky mechanics with the special dice that they use, and if you go up over the number by a lot in some stuff like spells and stuff like that, you do some extra stuff, but that's just for that game. Then there's the Percentile dice systems. These would be the games like Basic Role-Playing System, BRP, like Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, RuneQuest, and also games like Mothership, not related to BRP but also has a percentile system. Let me erase this. In games like this, all your skills and stats are graded from 0 to 100 because it's all percentile. So you have a 1d100. Usually you get no bonus. And then it is compared to your skill rating, but you have to Roll-Under. So for example, let's say in Call of Cthulhu you have an investigation skill. From 0 to 100, let's say you have a 50. So you have to roll 1d100 and roll under 50. No modifiers, and in this case the target number is always static, but it depends on the character. So for that character in particular, if they have a 50, they always have to roll against that target. If another character is worse at investigating and they have a 30, for example, then they have to roll the same d100 and roll under 30. I've played a few games of Call of Cthulhu and I really like skill-based systems and skill-based character sheets, but the percentile dice, it just doesn't go with me. I feel it's too swingy. I mean, if I feel d20s are swingy, percentile dice feel even more swingy. The good thing about it is, as with other skill-based systems, is that usually you can level up skill by skill, not the whole character by levels, but that's for another video. Then in games like Dungeon World, or perhaps all the other Powered by the Apocalypse games, the dice resolution system works like this. You roll 2d6 plus a modifier, usually in this game usually a +1 through +3, and you have to compare it to either two target numbers that are static and fixed in this game for everything. Either is going to be a 7 to 9 for a mixed success, or you want to get a 10 or more for a complete success. This is where it starts to get interesting for me, because if we go back to the d20 system and you roll the die, you have a 5% chance of getting any of the results from 1 to 20. In the case of the percentile die, it's actually the same, but 100. So you have a 1% chance of getting any of the result. But when you roll 2d6, the odds of getting any number in the result are not linear. They have a bell curve. I can show you with the following graphic. Okay, this is from the AnyDice website, and here's the output of 2d6 plus 1. I'm just assuming a +1 modifier in a game like Dungeon World. Okay, so you see here that if, for example, you want to roll a 3, there's a 2.78% of rolling that. But if you want to roll a 4, there's 5.56% of getting it. A 5 is 8.33%. And as you can see, the odds go up until you get to the 8, which has a 16.67% of happening, and then the bell curve reverts until you get to a 13 if you roll 2d6s. So if I change this table to the following graphic, and if you want to see what are the odds of getting at least a 7 for a mixed success, you see that the odds are 72.22%. But the higher you go, the more rare it is that you're going to roll that number. A complete success, the 10, there's a 27.78% of getting that. So this is the good thing about dice pools, that they create a bell curve in the results. The bad thing about it is that for some people, not having a linear result, they don't like it. For me, this is my cup of tea. I like bell curves. I don't like linear results that much. Okay, next in my list, it's Blades in the Dark, or other games forged in the dark like Scum and Villainy. This is the game I'm talking about, Blades in the Dark. Okay, in Blades in the Dark, you roll a pool of d6s from 1 to 4 usually. So I'm gonna write it like this: xd6, there's no modifiers. Although there are modifiers, because with some things you can get extra dice, but I would just add it to the first column. And after you roll, you take the highest die and you compare it against a target number, which is also fixed like in Dungeon World. So with a 4 and 5 you get a mixed success, and with a 6 you get a success. We played 2 campaigns of Blades in the Dark, and we also played one of Scum and Villainy, which is a very similar game. And in practice, most characters would be rolling 2 to 3 dice, at least in the games we had. So most of the time there's like a 50-50 chance of getting at least a mixed result. And in this game, rolling a mixed result means you add a complication or you get stress, which is like a meta currency in this game. Personally, I didn't like it that much. So rolling 2 or 3 dice and then just taking into account one of them, which is the highest. It's simple, it's straightforward, but personally, I didn't like it that much. This content is sponsored by you. Elven Tower Adventures is more than maps, stories, and quests. We're a fellowship. Your voice matters, and we want to create the best content for you. The best way to support our work is by subscribing to our Patreon page. who knows? Perhaps our Dungeon Vault magazine could become your every game's companion, or maybe our hundreds of maps and adventures are just what your imagination needs to take your games to the next level. Don't just play D&D, conquer it. Okay, then there's this new kid in the game, Daggerheart. Okay, I do not own this game and I haven't played it, so don't quote me if I get it wrong, but I researched it. And for this game, you roll 2d12. One of them represents hope, the other one represents fear. Then you add some modifiers to the roll, plus modifiers, and then you compare it to a target number. So on that front, it's similar to D&D, but with the 2d12, it makes the roll less swingy than with a d20. And it also creates the same bell curve as in Dungeon World with the 2d6, and you compare it with the difficulty class, or however they call it in this game. Okay, so this is the bell curve graphic for rolling 2d12 straight for games like Daggerheart. As you can see, just like with the 2d6 in Dungeon World, we have here a series of percentages of results that go up and then go down. So if you want to roll a 2 in 2d12s, that is rolling 2 ones, it is very unlikely. There's a 0.69% of getting that. However, if you as you go up the scale, if you expect to roll a 13, there's 8.33% of getting that. And then as you go higher, again, the percentages become more rare. So again, rolling a 24, that is 2 12s, is very unlikely. That's again a 0.69%, just like rolling 2 ones. But there's something extra. Like I mentioned before, one of the dice represents fear and the other hope, and one of them is going to be higher than the other most of the time. So you can meet the difficulty class, that is a success, but a success with fear being the higher die or hope being the higher die. Or you could also have a failure with either hope or fear being the highest result. That gives you 4 levels of success right there. And I gotta say, I really like this. I really like how this sounds. So it's pretty good. Don't quote me if I got it wrong. I haven't played Daggerheart, nor do I own it. But I read about this online and I thought this was pretty good. Okay, now, this is neither new. These are the OSR Roll-Under Systems. For this, I am using as an example Into the Odd, which is like a super slimmed down version of D&D, but the Roll-Under system is not original in this game. It has existed for ages. So the way it usually works is you roll 1d20, there are no modifiers, and then the target number is your stat. For example, if you are a fighter and you have a 16 in strength and you want to do something that's like something athletic that would use strength, you would roll the 1d20 and the target number is your strength score. So if you have a 15, you have to roll 15 or under. So I'll write here, roll under stat. So this is similar to the percentile system of Call of Cthulhu, but instead of having a number in a skill, this is your stat and you have to roll under that. In most of these games, when you create your character, as usual, you roll 3d6 straight up from the top down, and whatever you have are your stats. That means that the lower your stat, the easier it is to roll over it with a d20. And the higher it is, let's say a 16 or an 18 in intelligence, the easier it is to roll under it and succeed. Alrighty, my last example for this video is the system that they use in Mouse Guard and the Burning Wheel. These systems are very similar. They are also skill-based systems, like in basic role-playing or in Call of Cthulhu. So you have a ton of skills, and each of them is rated from 1 to 6 at most. And you roll a pool of d6s equal to your skill number. So again, you roll x d6 equal to your skill. There are non-numerical modifiers, but some things can have you add more dice or subtract dice in the same way that they do in Blades in the Dark. However, here the result is different. Here, each die with a result of 4 or more is a success. And then you count these successes and compare them to a target number. So versus target. Perhaps I have not explained it in the most clear way. So let's say you want to do the same thing, find the secret door, so you have an investigation skill. And let's say you have a skill of 3. So you roll 3d6 and then the GM gives you the target number. Let's say the target number is 2. So you have to roll 3d6s and have 2 of these dice be 4 or more. So contrary to Blades in the Dark, where you roll a dice pool of d6s, but then only take the highest one and that's the only one that matters, here you roll all the dice. Discard those that are 3 or under and keep those that are successes and just count them 1, 2, 3 and see if you meet the target. These games also have different grades of success depending on how much you overcome the target number or how bad you didn't reach it. You have some level of success which is not as defined as it appears to be in a system like Daggerheart or in Blades in the Dark, but in this game it is encouraged that before the roll is made there is a conversation of task and intent between the narrator and the players. So when they make the roll, they kind of already know what's gonna happen if they pass or if they fail. It is negotiated before the roll is made. Now this is the graph for a dice pool that works just like I described, where every die with a result of 4 or more counts as a success. So for this example, I am asking the website to calculate what happens when you roll 6 dice. So in this case, it also creates a bell curve, like in Dungeon World or in Daggerheart. Here, the odds of rolling every die 3 or under are 1.56%. It's very unlikely. Just like rolling 6 sixes, like everything in a critical hit, 1.56%. I just want you guys to point out that back there my 2 cats are fighting for the prime spot. It's a little out of focus, but the way it usually plays out is that my black cat is just going to take all the space and the yellow cat is just going to move away because cannot handle it. Okay, back to the bell curve graphic. The most likely outcome is rolling 3 successes. There's 31% chance of getting that. As I have mentioned before, this video has the purpose of documenting my process of creating a TTRPG game. I want to write a game that lends into the medieval fantasy, a Dungeons and Dragons like system, my fantasy heartbreaker. That's what I want to do. But most likely I will not be using a D20 system, mainly because I don't like it. I don't like the linearity of having 5% chance of getting any of the results. Yes, you can add modifiers on top of that and then you can move the target number, but I like the interaction of many dice together, the bell curve as we can see here in the graphic. So I will not be using something like what they do in Blades in the Dark, because you roll many dice and I like that, but then you only take the highest. I don't like that. I will probably research more into what Daggerheart does well or bad. And if you have played Daggerheart and I didn't get it right, or there's some context that I'm missing, I would appreciate if you leave a comment pointing me in the right direction. But the way I see it now, I am probably going to be working with a skill-based system, not a level system. I will probably be doing something similar to what they do in Mouseguard or the Burning Wheel, where they have a dice pool of probably d6s, but I might change that and then you just count successes. So there's little math to do, but a lot of dice on the table that you have to roll and then count and see if you get over the target number. Pancho, déjala en paz. So to capitulate, no dice resolution system is superior to others. They have different feels, they have different approaches, they achieve different goals. It depends on what you want to do with them. Do you want it to be linear? Do you want a bell curve with different probabilities for each result? Do you want fixed target numbers that never change? Or do you want to change the target number all the time as they do in Pathfinder or D&D? Or do you want to roll under a stat or a skill as they do in Call of Cthulhu or in the OSR replicas or OSR clones? Do you want to roll only 1 die or fill your hand with a lot of dice and just throw them on the table and see what's up? Add them all or just add the successes as they do in Mouseguard? At least that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm probably going to do a dice pool system. I didn't mention how they can explode. Like when you roll 6s, then it's like a critical and you add more, and I'm not really sure how to do it in this website to calculate the odds, but I will probably talk about that later. That said, I have recently bought some new books, some new systems when I was at a convention last month. I haven't read them yet, and I want to read them so I can know more about more dice resolution systems. In the end, there's a limitation of the games that I have had the chance to play or read. If you know more games that have interesting ways to resolve the dice mechanics, I would love to know more about them. Maybe I will change my mind about what I'm going to do with my game. Alright, this has been a long one. If you've watched this video this far, thank you very much. Please leave a comment if there's something relevant or valuable for you to share. I guess that's it for this one. My name is Derek and this is Elven Tower Adventures. I gotta say also, I am pretty surprised that my cats found a way to be together there behind me. Like I said, oh no, like I said, yeah, that's what usually happens. The black cat takes the space and the yellow cat gets sick and goes away. It took a while. It actually took longer than I thought.